What's going on, baseball fans? Welcome to episode 2 of MLB Top 10. Tonight, we're going over the top 10 biggest trade steals of all time. Let's get to it. So everyone, hello, welcome. Tonight, episode 2 of MLB Top 10, where I make a list of top 10s. Basically, the other day, I put a poll in the community tab for you guys to vote on, and you guys voted on the top 10 biggest trade steals of all time. So I've put together my favorite top 10, or my favorite 10 trade steals of all time. So if I leave any off, which I'm sure I have, please let me know down in the comments. These are just the ones that came to mind for me. So please let me know if there is any other ones that I missed. Please just let me know. But I am seeing 21 people to start things off. Hope everyone's having a good week so far. What is today? It's Tuesday. It's Tuesday. Man, busy day for me today. I've been working on a lot of stuff. Just to let you guys know, I will be really diving into some MLB draft stuff. That's coming up in about 3 weeks. So this Saturday, I will be going live Saturday night to do my first mock draft. I will be doing that live. That'll be version 1. Next Saturday will be version 2. And the Saturday after that, which will be the night before the first day of the draft, that'll be my third version. So please come on out to those. Hey, really starting to get into draft mode. I'm pretty excited. My Red Sox have the 4th overall pick this year. So, yeah, pretty exciting stuff. And don't forget, Thursday night, I will be doing hot takes. And this coming Sunday night as well, I will be doing power rankings. So let's just get right to the list. I'm not going to waste any more time. So again, tonight we're going over my top 10 biggest trade steals of all time. Before I do get started, though, if you are new here, hit that subscribe button for me, hit the like button, hit the bell button, all the buttons. I don't care whatever buttons there are, just click them. But alrighty, everyone, let's get started. Coming in at number 10, I have the White Sox trading Fernando Tatis Jr. to the Padres. This is the most recent one. I could have left this off. I could have gone with a couple other ones, but you know what? This is the freshest one on all of our minds, and I decided to start things off tonight with this one. So Fernando Tatis Jr., I'm pretty sure if you like baseball today, you know who Fernando Tatis Jr. is. This guy's a stud. Probably, in my opinion, the best player on the San Diego Padres today. But a very interesting trade. This went down, back in 2016. Fernando Tatis Jr. at the time wasn't considered a top prospect, but he was in the system. I believe he was the 30th overall in the international prospects. So wasn't like a Wander Franco kind of a name at the time, but a very solid prospect at the time. And he has just really emerged lately. So let's go take a look at the trade itself. It was a very lopsided trade. So let's go take a look at this. Alrighty. So this at the time did involve James Shields. James Shields at the time was a very solid pitcher for the Padres. He had pitched for the Royals recently before that in a World Series. But after that, this trade really just never worked out for the White Sox. So White Sox fans, luckily, they got some good pieces on that team now. And so, they're doing okay without Tatis Jr., but imagine if they had him. But taking a look, we all know kind of what Fernando Tatis Jr. can do now. 291, 22 home runs on the year, 14 stolen bases, 50 RBIs. This guy's, in my opinion, a 5-tool guy. The defense could be a little better, but Tatis Jr., he's one of the faces of baseball today, in my opinion. And to me, one of the in my opinion, probably the best young player in the game today. He's already off to a hot start. I mean, sure, maybe some people would want to put this higher on on the list. Maybe some people would want to leave this off the list just because of how new it is. You don't know what's going to end up happening, but he's really showed signs of just being just an incredible player for years to come. Hopefully he can stay healthy. But if we take a look at James Shields, he never really got it going with the White Sox. After 2016, this guy was just terrible. I mean, a 6.93 FIP, 5.83 FIP in 2017, 5.09 in 2018. I mean, the ERAs were a little better, but the FIPs just weren't very good. I mean, James Shields was just not effective with the Chicago White Sox. If we take a look at the wins above replacement for a James Shields, I mean, for the White Sox, he only managed a 0.1 wins above replacement. That's just awful. And as for now with Fernando Tatis Jr., he has already put together a 10.4 wins above replacement for the Padres in just 3 seasons. This guy's off the charts. He was 3rd in Rookie of the Year in 2019. In my opinion, it's already gotten off to be. This could end up being, when all is said and done, one of the biggest trade steals of all time. It's still very early. You never know what could happen. But as of right now, this was the way I wanted to start things off tonight. So, moving on to number 9, let's kind of go back in time a little bit. But at number 9, this was a pretty important trade. If we take a look, Kurt Schilling going to the Diamondbacks from the Phillies. Kurt Schilling going to the Diamondbacks back in the year 2000. If we go take a look here at the trades. Or at the trade itself. So the trade itself, back in the year 2000, it was right before the trade deadline. We had Kurt Schilling going to the Diamondbacks for Omar Dahl, Nelson Figueroa, Travis Lee, and Vicente Padilla, who was probably the best piece that went back to the Phillies. But Kurt Schilling going back to the Diamondbacks, he was awesome for them. Won a World Series for them. He didn't win a Cy Young, but he came in second 2 years in a row. This guy was huge in the World Series in 2002 against the Yankees, pitched Game 7. This guy was just a beast. Shared World Series MVP honors with Randy Johnson. This was such an important trade. I mean, the Diamondbacks were a newer team at the time. Kurt Schilling going over there and just really just getting it done. Didn't spend a lot of time with Arizona, so that's why this one's not as high on the list for me. But it's very important just because he helped them win a World Series. And also, spoiler alert, MLB fan William Fulgham, I see you talking about Babe Ruth in the chat. I did not include that on this list. To me personally, I considered that more of a, they sold him to the Yankees. I didn't include that. You could say it was a trade because they traded him for money, I guess, and to help fund a play for the Boston Red Sox owner at the time. Me personally, I didn't include it on this list, so that is a spoiler alert. No Babe Ruth on this list. You could definitely consider that a trade if you want to. For me personally, I just didn't because to me that was more of a purchase, if anything. So spoiler alert on that one. But taking a look here, going back to the Phillies, you did have Vicente Padilla. He was okay. I mean, obviously he wasn't at the level of a Kurt Schilling. He did put together 5.4 wins, but that was over 6 years. I mean, that's not very good. Omar Dahl never really did anything for the Phillies. Nelson Figueroa, not really too much either. Travis Lee, not really too much either. So this to me was a very lopsided trade. The Phillies were hoping to get some, decent young pieces back for a Kurt Schilling. But definitely this worked way more in favor of the Diamondbacks that year. So, in my opinion, one of the biggest steals of all time. Coming in at number 8. So this is a little fast forward a little bit. Actually, maybe it was around the same time, but we didn't see these players until later on. Coming in at number 8. This involves Grady Sizemore and Cliff Lee going to the Indians from the Montreal Expos. These two guys, Grady Sizemore included. This is a name Grady Sizemore could have been really good, but unfortunately the guy just started having a lot of injuries later on. But with the Indians, man, Grady Sizemore was awesome. And Cliff Lee was very, very good too. Let's go take a look at the trade. Taking a look here. So let me click out of these guys. All right, so here was the trade itself. So this came back in the year 2002. So yeah, this happened after the Curt Schilling trade. So man, I'll tell you, spoiler alert, the Expos are on this list a few times. The Expos did not have good luck with trades, I'll tell you that. But so going back to the Indians, you had Lee Stevens, Brandon Phillips. Brandon Phillips, I mean, he ended up being a very good player for the Cincinnati Reds. Didn't do very much for the Cleveland Indians, but but Grady Sizemore went along with Cliff Lee in this trade as well. And Bartolo Colon actually went back to the Expos. So Bartolo Colon was the big piece that went back to the Expos at the time. The Expos are trying to get some pitching. If we take a look, Bartolo Colon with the Indians, I mean, he was so good with the Indians. It was a big trade at the time. While with the Indians that year, he was 10-4 on the year. He had a 2.55 ERA. Bartolo Colon was very good. He had some some top 10 Cy Young finishes with the Indians. So it was a big deal at the time for him to go back to Montreal. And he ended up doing very well with Montreal in that second half of the season. 17 starts, a 3.31 ERA. So it's not like it didn't really work out for the Expos that year. It just didn't work out nearly as much as it did for the Indians. If we go take a look at, let's take a look at Sizemore first. Grady Sizemore, man, he could have really been something if he was just able to stay injury-free. But man, he was so good. If we take a look, Grady Sizemore was awesome, man. Taking a look, I mean, he was an all-around kind of a player. The guy could hit for power. He could hit for average. He could steal bases. Grady Sizemore was just an amazing player, a three-time All-Star. Gold Gloves, Silver Sluggers. Grady Sizemore, man, if you take a look at the wins above replacements, he put together almost 28 wins during that time for the Indians. Unfortunately, like I said, though, injuries just really derailed him. But Cliff Lee was the other piece that went back in this trade. He was very good. He was a prospect at the time. I mean, so was Sizemore. Sizemore didn't debut until 2004. So these guys were just prospects. But when they got to the show, they were very good. I mean, Cliff Lee actually did have his ups and downs, but Cliff Lee really emerged. If we take a look here, Cliff Lee did win a Cy Young Award in 2008. He finished fourth in 2005. Cliff Lee definitely had his moments during his time with the Indians. If we take a look at the wins above replacement during that time, he put together 16 wins over those 8 years. I mean, it was kind of up and down. He did have some bad seasons, but he had some really good seasons as well with the Indians. Like I said, Brandon Phillips didn't really do much with the Indians. He did way more with the Reds. But yeah, in my opinion, this trade was very big. Very big. Unfortunately for the Indians, they weren't really able to, have any success in the postseason. Too bad they couldn't win a World Series or anything out of it. But the differences between the packages, Bartolo Colon really only played with the Expos for half a season, and then he went elsewhere in free agency. So that is that. Coming in at number 7. I have another Expos trade, Randy Johnson going to the Mariners. Randy Johnson was huge with the Mariners. So if we go take a look here, let's pull up the numbers. Let me close out some of these tabs here. So here we go. Randy Johnson. So Randy Johnson, if we take a look at the trade, this happened back in 1989. So he went with Brian Holman and Gene Harris to the Mariners, and the Mariners, the big piece they got back was Mark Langston. They ended up getting Mike Campbell back as a player to be named later. Mike Campbell didn't even really do anything with the Expos. Mark Langston was actually pretty decent at the time. If we take a look, he had some really good numbers with the Mariners, again, the Expos looking for some pitching help. They ended up getting him, and he actually did pretty good with the Expos that year. He did have a 2.39 ERA. I mean, the guy was pretty solid. He struck out a lot of guys, but then he ended up going elsewhere in free agency. But then Randy Johnson, he did have some taste of the major leagues before he did get traded. In 1988, he had a 2.42 ERA over 4 starts. With Montreal that year, though, when he got traded, he was really struggling, and then he got traded to the Mariners. But man, we all know the story after that. He became the big unit. His better years were with the Diamondbacks, in my opinion. He did have a couple really good years with the Mariners. I mean, he won a Cy Young Award. He finished second and third, another second place finish with the Mariners. I mean, it took him a few years to really get going, but when he got going, this guy was just out of control, and then he was just dominant with the Diamondbacks later on in his career. But with the Mariners, I mean, look at that 1995 season. He was just awesome. 18-2 in 1995, 2.48 ERA, won the Cy Young that year, struck out a ton of batters, 294 strikeouts that year. That ended up being around 12 strikeouts per nine. Randy Johnson, I mean, we all know how good Randy Johnson was, but the fact that that trade was just so lopsided. And again, you know, Mark Langston was good for the Expos, but then he ended up going to the Angels in free agency. But man, oh man, it's too bad the Mariners couldn't do anything. They had that, a really fun season in 1995, ended up losing in the postseason that year. Randy Johnson ended up getting traded to the Astros in 1998, really helped them get to the postseason, and then he went to the Diamondbacks. So a very lopsided trade, one of the bigger ones in my opinion. Moving on to number 6. We have the Padres trading Anthony Rizzo to the Chicago Cubs. So this one's a little more recent. If we go take a look, I mean, I think a lot of people forget about how lopsided this trade actually was. At the time, it seemed like a pretty even trade. But if we go take a look, I mean, this trade has really worked out more in favor for the Cubs as time has gone by. Let's pull up some numbers here. So here we go, sharing the screen. Okay, so here was the trade. This was back. So Anthony Rizzo actually got traded a couple of times. He was with my Red Sox. He got drafted by the Red Sox. And but then 2010, he got traded to the Padres as part of that Adrian Gonzalez trade. In that trade, you had Anthony Rizzo, Casey Kelly, and Raymond Fuentes go to the Padres. And then the Padres traded him a couple years later to the Cubs for Andrew Cashner. Andrew Cashner was a bigger pitching prospect at the time. He was very solid, but then he just never really got it going with the Padres all that much. I mean, he had some decent years, but I mean, just not even close to what Anthony Rizzo ended up doing. Andrew Cashner, a 3.2 wins above replacement for the Padres over his time. Just never really got it going, but Anthony Rizzo has just been an amazing player for the Cubs. Won a World Series in 2016. Anthony Rizzo has been the real deal. If we take a look at what he's done with the Cubs over his career, 36.8 wins above replacement. That's fantastic. The guy's had, a couple of top 5 MVP finishes, Gold Glove awards at first base, Silver Sluggers. I mean, the guy's just been awesome. I mean, he's going to be, 25, 30 home runs a year. He's going to be a free agent shortly. He's probably going to get himself a decent contract, whether he goes somewhere else or stays with the Cubs. But in my opinion, I think this is a really underrated one just because, Anthony Rizzo is not really one of these like legendary kind of a player. He's just a very above average, very solid player and helped win a World Series. And, he's not going to be like a name like a Randy Johnson, or something like that. But Anthony Rizzo helped win a World Series, and that's a big deal. He's put up great numbers with the Cubs. So, in my opinion, this comes in at number 6 overall in the biggest trade steals of all time. We're going to get into the top 5. Here we go, getting into the top 5 now. At number 5, we have the Angels trading Jim Edmonds to the Cardinals. And this is kind of a funny one because this ended up bringing a couple of World Series to the Cardinals, and I'll explain here. So let's go to the numbers really quick. Alrighty, Jim. So let's go look at the trade. So this happened back in the year 2000. Here we go, sharing the screen. So again, this is one of my favorite ones because this actually brought a couple of World Series to the Cardinals, and I'll explain in a second. But the original trade was, so Jim Edmonds was a very, very good center fielder for the Angels. Was getting hurt a lot with the Angels, kind of having some rifts with ownership a little bit. But he was legendary with the Angels. Had a couple of amazing catches, highlight reel catches that will just long live in baseball infamy. But he really had his better years with the Cardinals. But in this trade, going back to the Angels. The Angels were looking for some pitching help, and they got Kent Bottenfield. This is a guy that had some pretty decent years with the Cardinals. When he went to the Angels, the guy just stunk. The Angels actually did get Adam Kennedy in this trade, which Adam Kennedy did help the Angels win a World Series shortly after that. But let's go take a look at the numbers. So Jim Edmonds, if we take a look, Jim Edmonds had some crazy years with the Cardinals, man. He was so good. He had 42 home runs after getting traded. He got 4th place in MVP that year. The guy was a Gold Glove winner every single year. He helped them win a World Series in 2006. He was a 3-time All-Star with the Cardinals. He only made 1 All-Star game with the Angels. He was very good with the Angels, but he was just better with the Cardinals. The guy entered his prime with the Cardinals. And wins above replacement, that's the big one I'm kind of looking at. He had about 38 wins with the Cardinals. He was good with the Angels, 20 wins overall. But overall, though, I mean, he was way better with the Cardinals. But if we go take a look at the guys that went back to the Angels, looking at Kent Bottenfield, this is a guy where back in 99, he won 18 games, and that was when the game of baseball really focused on wins. It didn't really look too much at like ERA and more of the advanced numbers. I mean, he had 18 wins, so a lot of people thought like, whoa, he won 18 games. You know, that's a really good picture right there. So it was a blockbuster trade. He went back to the Angels. Ended up not doing anything with the Angels. He had 1 season with them, had some injuries, a 5.71 ERA. He just stunk with the Angels. Adam Kennedy, though, was very solid. So the Angels didn't entirely lose this trade. They did get a World Series, with Adam Kennedy. Adam Kennedy, though, wasn't a Jim Edmonds. If we take a look at the numbers with the Angels, he had a wins above replacement of 18.2. So it's not like, the Angels completely swung and missed on this. They did get a good piece back. And he was the ALCS MVP during that World Series run. So Adam Kennedy was a solid player. But, I mean, overall, the Cardinals really won this trade. And let me explain how the Cardinals actually ended up winning another World Series because of Jim Edmonds. And they actually won a World Series without Jim Edmonds. But they were able... Let me just explain. So if we take a look, again, 2000, he got traded to the Cardinals, helped them win in 2006. But then, he ended up getting traded to the Padres in 2007. And that actually brought back David Freese. And David Freese helped them win the 2011 World Series, had that legendary home run in Game 6 of the World Series that year. So you could say that Jim Edmonds, kind of helped the Cardinals win 2 World Series. So that, to me, pretty cool if you think about it. So moving on here, let me click out of some of these. But moving on, coming in at number 4, this one's a big one. This one's a big one here. Jeff Bagwell getting traded from my Red Sox to the Houston Astros, and Jeff Bagwell going on to have a legendary career, a Hall of Fame career with the Astros. Unfortunately, didn't help the Astros win a World Series, but let's go take a look at some of the numbers. I mean, the numbers really speak for themselves, and that's why Bagwell, even though he didn't help the Astros win a World Series, they got close a couple of times, but in the end, it just wasn't enough to get it done. But let's take a look here at the numbers for Jeff Bagwell. Well, let's look at the trade first. So he was with the Astros his entire career. He got traded for Larry Anderson. Larry Anderson went back to the Red Sox in 1990. The Red Sox were looking for some help with the pitching. They needed some bullpen help, and they traded young prospect Jeff Bagwell. If we take a look, Larry Anderson was actually really good for the Red Sox that year. 15 games, a 1.23 ERA out of that bullpen, struck out a lot of guys. He was very good for the Red Sox that year, but he ended up leaving the Red Sox in free agency. He went elsewhere, and then Jeff Bagwell had himself an amazing career, won an MVP, won Rookie of the Year. He never won a World Series. I mean, it would have been great if he could have gotten a World Series. They came close a couple of times. 2005, they were in the World Series there. 2004, they were close, but just never really got it done World Series wise. But numbers wise, holy cow, this guy just put up insane numbers. 449 home runs, a 297 career average, over 1,500 RBIs. Actually stole to over 200 bases. He had over a 400 on base, a 948 career OPS. Wins above replacement. This guy put together a ton of wins for the Astros. About 80 wins contributed over those 15 seasons. Jeff Bagwell, he was one of my favorite players because I just always loved that batting stance. I mean, who didn't like that batting stance? Tell me, when people were playing baseball at this time, they didn't try to emulate that batting stance. I don't know how the heck he did it, but here we go. Moving on, but yeah, Jeff Bagwell for Larry Anderson. I mean, what a lopsided trade. I mean, Larry Anderson, a good year for the Red Sox in that, a couple of months he was with them, but you didn't even come close to Jeff Bagwell. So here we go. We're getting into the top three now, and we're going to stay with the Red Sox, and we're going to get back to the Expos here. The Expos did not have a lot of luck here in the trades, but the Red Sox got a huge piece and one of the best pitchers of all time, Pedro Martinez. I don't know if a lot of people remember, Pedro Martinez was a Montreal Expo at one point before going to the Red Sox. So let's go take a look at some numbers here. I mean, Pedro Martinez, probably my favorite pitcher of all time. Let's go take a look at the trade itself. So this actually involved... The Expos did get back a top pitching prospect in a Carl Pavano. Carl Pavano was their top pitching prospect at the time. And they also got back a player to be named later that ended up being Tony Armas. Carl Pavano with the Expos just didn't really do all that much. He had his better years with the Marlins. I mean, he was with the Twins later on in his career. I mean, he didn't really do much with the Yankees. When he signed with the Yankees in 2005, people were like, whoa, Carl Pavano. But he had his better years with the Marlins. 2003 helped win a World Series. 2004, he was really good in 2004. But overall, with the Expos, though, just didn't really do much. Again, he was a top pitching prospect with the Red Sox before going to the Expos. But if we take a look at the wins above replacement, with the Expos, only put together 2.6 wins. And then Tony Armas as well. He ended up being with the Expos for a few years as well. Tony Armas ended up being a lot better than Carl Pavano. He ended up, transitioning to the Nationals. Tony Armas was with them for quite a while. He put together 9 wins during that time. So it's funny that, Carl Pavano, the top pitching prospect that went back, didn't even come close to the production that Tony Armas did. But we all know the story of Pedro Martinez. Pedro Martinez, with the Expos for a few years, he had a couple of good seasons with the Expos. This is a young flamethrower out of the Dominican Republic. He was very good with the Expos, but the Red Sox were looking to rebuild the top of that rotation to try and be a little more competitive with the Yankees in that division. And, he was very good with the Expos. He won 55 games with the Expos, a 3.06 ERA, almost 10 strikeouts per 9. But when he went to the Red Sox, it was just legendary. Just legendary seasons with the Red Sox. His first season with the Red Sox, won 19 games, a 2.89 ERA. He finished second in Cy Young that year. 99 was one of the best pitching seasons of all time. 23-4 that year, a 2.07 ERA. He had a 1.39 FIP. He won the Cy Young that year. He won it again in the year 2000. Pedro Martinez was the best pitcher in baseball at that time, without a doubt. 2001, he was great. 2002, 2003, 2004, he ended up the numbers weren't as good that year, but he was still really good that year with the Red Sox. Helped them finally break the curse in 2004. Pedro Martinez, to me, the fact that in this trade, the Red Sox ended up getting one of the best pitchers of all time in a Pedro Martinez, that speaks for itself. So in my opinion, that is the third biggest trade steal of all time. Now, let's move into number 2. We're going to have to go way back for this one. Way back. Here we go. This is going to involve the Cubs and the Cardinals. A Hall of Famer here. Here we go. The Cubs trading Lou Brock to the St. Louis Cardinals. Wow, what a lopsided trade this was, man. Look at this. So here we go. Taking a look here. This was the trade. So this was back in 1964. So he got traded with Jack Spring for Paul Toth. or got traded with Jack Spring and Paul Toth going to the Cardinals. And the big piece going back to the Cubs was Ernie Broglio, and we had Bobby Shantz and Doug Clemens. Ernie Broglio was the big name going back to the Cubs. Let's take a look at him before we go to Lou Brock. I mean, the Cubs were looking for some pitching at the time, and I mean, he ended up doing okay with the Cardinals. So, all right, he was good with the Cardinals, but then with the Cubs, he just didn't do all that much. But then Lou Brock, man, Lou Brock. I mean, he had a couple of seasons there with the Cubs. Lou Brock was very known at the time for how fast he was. He was a decent guy. He was a decent player with the Cubs, but the legendary career started with the Cardinals. This guy changed the game because of his speed. Look at how many stolen bases this guy had in 1974. He had 118 stolen bases. That is insane. This guy was in the MVP consideration quite a few times. 6th place in 68. 2nd place in 74. I mean, 74, this guy was insane, man. 118 stolen bases. He had 306 that year, 368 on base. I mean, he's not really ever much of a power guy. He was more of an average and a speed kind of a guy, but he ended up helping win a couple of World Series with the Cardinals. He into the Hall of Fame, a 6-time All-Star. I mean, he was the Major League Player of the Year at one point. I mean, Lou Brock, a Hall of Famer, helping win a couple of World Series. And for the Cubs that they only got, Ernie Broglio, a couple of decent seasons out of him. I mean, really only one decent season, actually, if I think about it. I mean, he had a 4.04 ERA. I mean, that was okay. But, I mean, look at what Lou Brock did with the Cardinals. Insane. Lou Brock ended up having the stolen base record at one point. He broke Ty Cobb's, and then Ricky Henderson ended up breaking his record. So Lou Brock, one of the most legendary players of all time. And, the Cubs had their curse for a while. And, just goes to show they were cursed as well in the trade department. But here we go. We have finally made it to number 1. I think some people might find this one a little controversial. You could maybe say it's a little biased on my part. It does involve my Red Sox. But in my opinion, when you take a look at the numbers, when you take a look at the results that ended up happening, I personally think this is the biggest trade steal of all time just because of the results that it produced, not just with the stats, but championships that it brought along with it. So again, this could be a controversial one. This is just my opinion, so let me know what you think down below in the comments. But here we go at number 1. This one might be one that you're not really kind of expecting, but here we go. At number 1. At number 1, we got the Seattle Mariners trading Jason Varitek and Derek Lowe to the Red Sox. I think this is a very underrated trade in history, but in my opinion, the fact that this brought 3 combined World Series rings to the Red Sox, and the Mariners ended up getting nothing out of this trade. The Mariners basically gave away a Jason Varitek and a Derek Lowe to the Red Sox, and then they got a few World Series rings out of it. So let's go take a look here at the numbers. Let's take a look at the original trade, actually. Taking a look. So the original trade, simply put, it was Jason Varitek and Derek Lowe for Heathcliff Slocum. I mean, unbelievable. Heathcliff Slocum. I mean, this is a guy for the bullpen at the time. He was pretty good out of the bullpen, but I mean, the fact that he just didn't do anything with the Mariners. He really was ineffective as a reliever for the Mariners. If you take a look at the wins above replacement, what did he do? He had a 0.4 wins above replacement for the Mariners over those 2 years. And then if you take a look at these two guys for the Red Sox, Jason Varitek, a legend in Red Sox history. You could argue easily one of the top catchers in Red Sox history, with Kari Yastrzemski. But Jason Varitek won 2 World Series with the Red Sox. He won one with Derek Lowe in 2004. Those two guys were huge pieces for the Red Sox in 2004. Derek Lowe, we'll get to Derek Lowe here in a second, actually. Let's take a look at Jason Varitek. Jason Varitek had a very solid career, 24 wins wins above replacement during his 15 seasons with the Red Sox. He was just a solid player. Really was an integral part of that 2004 Red Sox team and helped them win again in 2007. Jason Varitek also caught a lot of no-hitters. He caught one from Derek Lowe, actually. And let's talk about Derek Lowe. So Derek Lowe, he was very good for the Red Sox. He was awesome. 2004, he actually did struggle that regular season. A bad season for the Red Sox that year, a 5.42 ERA. That FIP that year, though, was a lot better, a 4.26 FIP. I remember that year the defense wasn't all that great for him. He was a ground ball kind of a guy, and he just didn't get a lot of luck. You know, Nomar was at shortstop that year, and Nomar was struggling defensively that year. And, Derek Lowe just didn't have a great defense behind him. And so that's why the Red Sox, they ended up making, trades for Orlando Cabrera and Doug Minkiewicz that year to help out the defense. So I really think Derek Lowe got plagued by some not great defense that year. But Derek Lowe was huge for the Red Sox in the postseason that year. Against the Yankees in Game 7, 7 shutout innings. With the Cardinals, he won the clinching game against the Cardinals that year to help win the World Series that year. These two guys were just huge pieces in Red Sox history. And the fact that all they had to give up was Heathcliff Slocum, just a bullpen piece that ended up not even doing anything for the Mariners. In my opinion, I think this is one of the most underrated trades of all time. But in my opinion, I think it's the biggest steal of all time. They got two integral pieces for two different World Series teams. Derek Lowe, he won one World Series with the Red Sox in 2004, but Derek Lowe was huge, man. Like, he was very good. He was a two-time All-Star with the Red Sox. Varitek was a few All-Star appearances. Hey, maybe it's a little biased on my part, but the numbers speak for themselves. These guys contributed to over 40 wins, while Heathcliff Slocum didn't even help contribute one full win. So that is my list. I'm going to go over it one more time. So at number 10, we have the White Sox trading Fernando Tatis Jr. to the Padres. We have the Phillies trading Curt Schilling to the Diamondbacks at number 9. We have the Expos trading Grady, Sizemore, and Cliff Lee to the Indians. Fuzzy, where are you at? Hold on. Sorry, everyone. My microphone was not working there. So at number 8, we have the Expos trading Grady, Sizemore, and Cliff Lee to the Indians. Oh, sorry. My microphone was working. I apologize. But at number 7, we had the Expos trading Randy Johnson to the Mariners. We have the Padres trading Anthony Rizzo to the Cubs. We have the Angels trading Jim Edmonds to the Cardinals. We have the Red Sox trading Jeff Bagwell to the Astros. We have the Expos trading Pedro Martinez to the Red Sox. We have the Cubs trading Lou Brock to the Cardinals. And one reason why I have this one actually ahead of the Pedro one is because Lou Brock ended up helping the Cardinals win 2 World Series. So Pedro only helped the Red Sox win 1. So, and then at number 1, my opinion, the biggest trade steal of all time, the Mariners trading Jason Varitek and Derek Lowe to the Red Sox. So, everyone, that is my list for tonight. I appreciate you all coming out. Let me know what you think down below in the comments. Do you agree with the list? Did I miss any? Let me know which ones that I missed. I'm pretty sure I've missed a few. So, everyone, I will be back here Thursday night for MLB Hot Takes. For Sunday night, I'll be back for the power rankings. And also, don't forget, I will be doing my first mock draft for the MLB draft this year. So everyone, thank you for coming out tonight. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.